You sit down for a moment of peace, and suddenly your mind gets even louder. It's almost unfair, isn't it? You finally give yourself 5 quiet minutes, and your thoughts rush in like a crowd that's been waiting outside the door. A list, a memory, a worry, something you said 3 years ago, something you still haven't figured out, and it can make you feel like you've failed before you've even begun. If you've been there, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not doing it wrong. You're not broken. You're not bad at stillness. This is important to hear. The noise doesn't mean stillness is unavailable to you. The noise often means you finally stopped running long enough to notice what's been living underneath the movement. And yes, I said running, because so many of us have been running in ways that don't look like running on the outside. You've been functioning, performing, holding it together, smiling at the right moments, answering messages, meeting deadlines, caring for people, trying to be everything you need to be, while a quiet part of you has been whispering, "Can we please come home?" Your heart already knows this. The craving for stillness isn't a trend. It's not a luxury. It's a spiritual and emotional hunger. It's the part of you that remembers there is a deeper life than survival. So if you're listening right now and something in you feels tired, not lazy, not unmotivated, but tired in that soul-deep way, let that be honored. You've been carrying this. You've been carrying so much more than you ever let yourself admit. And yet here you are, still searching, still open, still willing to meet yourself again. That takes courage. Just for a moment, notice your body as it is, not how you want it to be. Feel your shoulders, your jaw, your breath moving in and out without needing permission. Let your hands rest in whatever way feels natural. And if you can, soften one tiny place, maybe your forehead, maybe the space behind your eyes, and let that be enough for right now, because stillness doesn't ask you to become someone else. Stillness asks you to stop abandoning yourself. What if the restlessness you feel in stillness isn't a sign to stop, but a sign you finally arrived? What if your mind getting louder when you sit down is not the enemy, but the evidence that you've opened a door you've kept closed for a long time? Have you noticed that the moment you stop moving, everything you've been outrunning tries to catch up? Of course it does. Your system has been doing what it was designed to do: protect you, organize you, help you cope. The mind's job is to think, to scan, to plan, to solve. It isn't a flaw that it keeps producing thoughts. It's a function. The pain comes when we believe we need to silence the mind in order to be spiritual, or healed, or connected. And then stillness becomes another test, another place to fail, another thing to do correctly. And if you've tried meditation like that, like a performance, then you know exactly what happens. You sit, you struggle, you judge yourself, you quit, and you walk away with the familiar feeling of, "See, I can't." I know that feeling. I honor that feeling. And I want to offer you a different doorway, a doorway that is much kinder and much more true. There's a difference between silence and stillness, and your highest self lives in that difference. Silence is about the absence of sound. Stillness is about presence. Silence can happen in an empty room while your inner world is in chaos. Stillness can happen in a crowded place when you are anchored in yourself. Your highest self, that wise, loving, steady part of you, is not waiting for your thoughts to disappear. It's waiting for your attention to stop panicking. It's waiting for you to stop treating your inner life like a problem that needs fixing. Because your highest self doesn't speak in panic. It doesn't shout. It doesn't compete with your fear. It doesn't argue with your mind. It's like a calm voice in the back of the room that only becomes clear when you stop racing toward the front. And you might be thinking, but how do I do that when my anxiety is loud, when my mind won't stop, when my body is tense? This is where we get very gentle, very real. Stillness is not the absence of sensation. Stillness is safety inside sensation. And the way you find it isn't by forcing your mind into quiet. It's by learning how to stay with yourself without leaving. Let that settle for a moment. How many times have you left yourself today? Not physically, emotionally, in little ways. The moment you felt overwhelmed and you reached for your phone. The moment you felt lonely and you distracted yourself. The moment you felt uncertain and you started overthinking. The moment you felt something tender rising up and you swallowed it down. None of that makes you wrong. It makes you human. But it also means you've been practicing a pattern, moving away from yourself the instant you feel something uncomfortable. And your highest self, your truest self, cannot be found through avoidance. It's found through companionship, through staying, through the simple decision again and again to be with what is. So let's make this real. Stillness doesn't begin when your thoughts disappear. It begins when you stop being afraid of them. I know that might feel like a tall ask, so we're not going to do it all at once. We're going to start the way real transformation always begins, with something small enough to be honest. Here's what I've come to understand. The modern nervous system doesn't need bigger practices. It needs kinder entry points. You don't need to sit perfectly still for 30 minutes while your mind screams. You don't need to clear your thoughts like erasing a board. You need a moment where you stop fighting yourself. A moment where you stop grading your inner experience. A moment where you say, I'm here, even if it's messy. That's stillness. So I want to offer you something that is almost too simple, and that's why it works. Micro stillness. 10 seconds. 15. 30. Not as a workaround, as a doorway. Because your highest self isn't measuring your time. It's meeting your sincerity. Right now, could you try this with me, not as a performance, but as an experiment? Let your eyes soften. You can keep them open or closed, whatever feels safest. And just notice one thing that is true in your body, one simple sensation. The weight of your body in your chair. The temperature of the air on your skin, the feeling of your breath touching the inside of your nose. Not fix it, not change it, just notice. And as you notice, see if you can say silently, yes, this is here. That's it. Yes, this is here. This is the beginning of stillness, because the mind relaxes when reality is allowed. Most of the agitation you feel isn't from what's happening inside you. It's from your resistance to what's happening inside you. So many people are trying to meditate by wrestling themselves into calm. And the body hears that as threat. The nervous system hears, I am not acceptable until I am different. And it tightens. And it floods you with more thoughts, more sensations, more restlessness, because it thinks something is wrong. So when you sit down and the mind gets louder, what if you didn't treat it as a mistake? What if you treated it as information, a signal, a message, not from your fear, but from your system asking for gentleness? If you've been unable to be still, it's because stillness hasn't felt safe yet. That's not a character flaw. That's a nervous system remembering experiences. Maybe you grew up in environments where being quiet wasn't safe, where silence meant waiting for something, where stillness meant you might be noticed, criticized, or left alone with feelings no one helped you hold. Maybe you learned that productivity equals worth, that rest must be earned, that slowing down means falling behind. Maybe your life has demanded so much from you that stillness feels like a luxury you can't afford. If any of that is true, I see you. I honor what you've been carrying, and I want you to know you're allowed to approach stillness like a gentle reintroduction, not a strict requirement. Your highest self is not an instructor holding a stopwatch. Your highest self is a loving presence saying, I'm here whenever you're ready. Now there's something happening in stillness that most people don't realize at first, and it changes everything. When you stop moving, you start noticing the layers. At the surface layer, there's noise, thoughts, planning, mental chatter. Under that, there's emotion, sadness you didn't want to feel, frustration you've swallowed, grief you've postponed, tenderness you've hidden. Under that, there's the body, sensations, tightness, fatigue, pulsing energy, the honest language of your nervous system. And beneath all of it, there's presence, not empty, full, steady, quietly alive. That presence is what many people call the highest self, not a better version of you, not a perfect you, your deepest you. The you that doesn't come and go with mood, the you that remains even when life is hard, the you that can hold all the layers without collapsing into them. And here's the part you may need to hear. You don't access that presence by trying to jump past the layers. You access it by allowing the layers to be there while you stay connected. That's why stillness feels hard at first. It asks you to be with what you've been skipping, So let's talk about the most common moment people turn away. It's when they sit down and they feel something. A tightness in the chest, a weight in the stomach, a buzzing in the skin, a sense of dread or emptiness or sadness that doesn't have a clear story. And then the mind rushes in with its emergency plan. Get up, do something, fix it, analyze it, scroll, eat, text, work. Have you noticed how quickly your mind tries to rescue you from feeling? It thinks it's helping. And in some seasons, it truly did help. But if you're here now, it may be because you're ready for a different kind of support. You're ready to be supported by presence instead of avoidance. So the practice becomes very tender. When you feel something in stillness, instead of leaving, you meet it like you would meet a child who's been waiting alone. You don't interrogate it. You don't demand it explain itself. You simply arrive. And you might say, I'm here with you. That sentence, simple, quiet, can become a bridge to your highest self. Because your highest self is the part of you that knows how to stay. Now I want to offer you a fresh way to understand connection, because this is where the whole thing becomes less mystical and more intimate. Connecting with your highest self is not a lightning strike. It's a relationship. And like any relationship, it deepens through consistency, trust, and safety. If you only show up when you're calm, your highest self becomes associated with conditions. If I'm peaceful, I'm connected. If I'm anxious, I'm disconnected. But what if connection is not a reward for calmness? What if connection is the medicine that makes calmness possible? What if you could be connected even while your mind is busy, even while your emotions are tender, even while you don't know what comes next? Your heart already knows this. The truest connection isn't fragile. It's steady. So here's a practice that's very powerful, and it doesn't require silence. It requires honesty. I call it the stillness sentence. When you sit down, you don't try to become peaceful. You tell the truth of what's here, and you stay. You might whisper inside, right now, my mind is busy. Or, right now, I feel tired. Or, right now, I feel uncertain. And then you add one more line, like a hand on your own heart. And I am still here. Right now, my mind is busy. And I am still here. Right now, I feel tired. And I'm still here. Right now, I don't know. And I am still here. That second line is everything. Because it's the moment you stop abandoning yourself. And it teaches your system something new. I can be with myself without needing to fix myself. This is how you begin to recognize your highest self, not as an idea, but as a felt presence. Somewhere deep inside, you've always known. Your highest self is not far away. It has simply been quieter than your coping strategies. So let's talk about stillness in daily life, because many people think, I can't be still unless I have perfect conditions. No noise, no interruptions, no responsibilities. And if that's what you're waiting for, you might wait a long time. Stillness isn't something you do only when life stops. Stillness is something you carry into life. It's the way you pause before you respond, the way you exhale before you open the next email, the way you come back to your breath while the kettle boils, the way you feel your feet on the ground while you're standing in line. Tiny, ordinary moments that become sacred because you are present in them. This is where the competitive content gets it wrong, honestly. It sells stillness like a destination. But stillness is a threshold, a small doorway you can step through again and again. And each time you do, you strengthen the pathway to your highest self. Now there's another reason stillness is so powerful, and it might surprise you. Stillness reveals what is true, not what is loud, not what is urgent, what is true. When you're constantly moving, you can mistake intensity for truth. You can mistake anxiety for intuition. You can mistake other people's expectations for your own calling. But in stillness, something begins to separate. What belongs to you, and what you've been carrying for everyone else. What is yours to do, and what is yours to release. What is fear, and what is wisdom. And you don't have to force that clarity. It emerges gently, the way dawn arrives without force. Have you noticed how your clearest moments rarely come when you're trying to solve something? They come when you're washing dishes, when you're walking, when you're in the shower, when you're staring out a window. That's stillness, even in motion. It's the moment the mind loosens its grip and your highest self has room to speak. Now, I want to be very careful here, because some people in spiritual spaces make huge claims about downloads and messages and certainty. What I will say is simpler and truer. In stillness, you become more receptive to your own inner knowing. You become more sensitive to the quiet yes and the quiet no that has been there all along. Your body often knows before your mind does. And you might notice this. When something is aligned, your chest feels more open. Your breath moves easier. Your shoulders drop. When something is misaligned, your stomach tightens. Your throat constricts. Your energy feels scattered. This is not magic you have to earn. It's a relationship you can learn. So here's a grounded practice for connecting with your highest self through stillness, one that respects your nervous system and your real life. I call it the 3 doorways. It takes 1 minute. You can do it any time. Doorway 1. Body. For 20 seconds, you bring attention to a simple sensation. Feet on the ground, breath in the belly, hands resting, nothing fancy. Doorway 2. Heart. For 20 seconds, you ask a gentle question, not a demanding one. What do I need right now? Not what should I do? Not how do I fix my life? what do I need right now? And you listen without forcing an answer. Doorway 3. Highest Self. For 20 seconds, you offer a phrase that opens the relationship. Show me the next kind step. Not the whole plan, not the final destination, the next kind step. And then you let yourself receive whatever comes. A feeling, a word, an image, a soft sense of direction, or even just a deeper breath. And if nothing comes, that's okay, because the practice is not about getting an answer. It's about building trust. You're telling your inner world, I will come back. You're telling your highest self, I am listening. You're telling your life, I don't have to rush to be worthy. And if you've been living in urgency, that is revolutionary. Now let me name something else that often happens when you begin to practice stillness. At first, it can feel like things get worse. Not because stillness is harming you, but because you're noticing. You're noticing how tired you are. You're noticing where you've been overgiving. You're noticing how long you've been ignoring your own needs. You're noticing the grief that's been waiting. You're noticing the truth about certain relationships, certain patterns, certain choices. And that can feel heavy. So I want to hold your hand through this part gently. If stillness brings up emotion, it doesn't mean you're regressing. It often means you're thawing. And thawing can be tender, like ice melting back into water. It moves, it shifts, it releases. If you feel tears behind your eyes when you're finally quiet, you're not weak, you're not dramatic, you're honest. Your system is letting go of what it couldn't release while you were in survival mode. This works alongside your healing support system, and it can complement professional care in a beautiful way. And if big emotions arise that feel overwhelming, honor what your body and healthcare providers guide you toward. Stillness is not meant to be endured. It's meant to be supportive. So if you need to do stillness in smaller doses, do that. If you need to keep your eyes open, do that. If you need to place a hand on your heart or wrap yourself in a blanket, do that. There is no right way. There is only the way that helps you come home. And when you do come home, even for a moment, your highest self becomes easier to recognize, because it feels different than fear. Fear is urgent, pressing, harsh. Your highest self is steady, kind, clear. Fear says, fix it now. Your highest self says, breathe and choose the next kind step. Fear says, you're behind. Your highest self says, you are here, and that is enough to begin. Fear says, prove yourself. Your highest self says, you belong. Do you feel the difference? Even reading those words, something in you recognizes. That recognition, that soft inner yes, is you connecting. Now, I want to offer you one more angle that competitors rarely explore. The highest self is not only a voice, Sometimes it's a boundary. Sometimes it's the moment you pause before you say yes. Sometimes it's the breath that helps you say no without guilt. Sometimes it's the stillness that allows you to feel the cost of what you've been tolerating. So if you've been craving stillness, it might be because you're ready to stop overriding yourself. You're ready to stop negotiating with your own truth. You're ready to live in a way that doesn't require you to abandon your inner life. And you don't have to do that perfectly. You simply have to begin noticing where you leave and practice returning. Returning is the whole path. If you've been feeling disconnected, it's because you've been spending so much time in your mind that you forgot your body is also a home. If you've been feeling confused, it's because you've been absorbing too many voices, and stillness is how you remember your own. If you've been feeling restless, it's because your soul is asking for space. Space to breathe. Space to listen. Space to hear what matters beneath what's loud. Now, in the next few days, you might start to notice tiny doorways opening, ordinary moments where you can choose a different inner home. It might be while brushing your teeth. It might be when you're waiting for a page to load. It might be when you're walking from one room to another, and you'll remember, oh, I can be here. You'll remember the stillness sentence. Right now, things are busy, and I am still here. Right now, I feel a lot, and I am still here. Right now, I don't know, and I am still here. That phrase becomes an anchor, not to make you numb, to make you present. Because presence is where your highest self meets you. And the more you practice this, the more you'll notice something else. You begin responding instead of reacting. You begin choosing instead of collapsing. You begin hearing yourself before you lose yourself. And you don't need to wait for a perfect meditation session for that. Stillness is the pause you give yourself before you follow an old pattern. It's the breath that interrupts a spiral. It's the willingness to sit with discomfort long enough to discover it's not here to destroy you. It's here to be heard. Let me share a brief story, because sometimes a story helps the truth land more gently. I once knew someone who said she couldn't meditate because every time she sat down, her mind attacked her with self-criticism. She would hear every mistake, every regret, every fear, and she believed that meant she wasn't spiritual enough, calm enough, healed enough. One day she tried something different. She didn't try to quiet the mind. She simply placed her hand on her heart and said, "I'm listening." And then she stayed for 10 seconds. That was all. 10 seconds. She stood up and went on with her day. The next day she did 15 seconds. The next day she did 20. And slowly, her mind learned something new. I don't have to scream to be heard. I will be met. That's when stillness became a place of safety. And in that safety, her highest self became audible. You're being offered the same invitation, not to force stillness, to make it safe. Because your highest self is not a distant summit you have to climb. It's the ground beneath your feet when you stop running. So now, as we begin to close, I want to bring you into a simple, embodied moment, right where you are. Notice your breath again, not to change it, just to feel it. Feel how it arrives and how it leaves without your effort, without needing you to be perfect. Your breath is such a teacher. It reminds you that life moves through you naturally when you stop gripping. Now feel one point of contact, your feet on the floor, your back against the chair, your hands resting. Let your body be a place you can live. And if it feels emotional, if it feels tender, if it feels unfamiliar, let that be okay. You're rebuilding trust. Trust yourself. Trust with your inner world. Trust with the part of you that has been waiting to be met. Your highest self isn't asking for a dramatic transformation. It's asking for your presence again and again. In small ways, kind ways, real ways. And when you return to the world after stillness, you don't return as the same person. You return as someone who has met herself, someone who knows what it feels like to be home inside, someone who doesn't need external chaos to determine internal reality, someone who can hold the complexity of life with a quieter center. This doesn't mean life will never feel messy. It means you won't be alone inside the mess. Your heart already knows this. You were never meant to do life by abandoning yourself. So if you take nothing else with you, take this. Stillness is not the moment your thoughts disappear. Stillness is the moment you stop leaving. And even if that moment is 10 seconds long, it counts. It matters. It builds something in you. It strengthens the bridge. And over time, that bridge becomes a path you can walk anytime you need guidance, comfort, or clarity. Your highest self is not far away. It has been with you in every breath, in every quiet longing, every moment you whispered, "There has to be more than this." There is more, and it's not somewhere else. It's here, in you, now. Let that land fully, and feel how something in you softens when you stop chasing what you already are.